Nice try, but we both know you can't afford this seat. The words hit like a slap across gate C-14. Bethany Walsh held the boarding pass high, examining it with theatrical suspicion. Her lips curled into a smirk as she addressed the impeccably dressed black woman. The gate agent gripped both ends of the first-class ticket. Another deliberate tear. The papers split cleanly down the middle. Not satisfied, Bethany ripped it again into quarters. White confetti scattered across the polished floor. She ground the fragments under her heel, brushing her hands together. There, problem solved. Dr. Keisha Washington knelt gracefully, collecting each torn piece while 200 passengers watched in stunned silence. A teenager's phone captured every second. Have you ever watched someone's world completely flip upside down in less than 10 minutes? Because what happened next changed everything. Flight 447 departure. 47 minutes. The automated announcement echoed overhead as Keisha gathered the last fragments of her destroyed boarding pass. Her navy blazer remained pristine despite kneeling on the airport floor. She stood slowly, dignity intact. Bethany Walsh reached for her desk phone, speaking loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. Security to gate C-14. We have a passenger attempting to board with fraudulent documents. She gestured dramatically at the torn pieces still scattered near Keisha's feet. As you can see, I had to confiscate her fake boarding pass for everyone's safety. A college student named Tasha pulled out her phone, fingers flying across the screen. She'd been filming since the ticket destruction began. Her TikTok live stream showed 50 viewers, then 100, then 300. "Y'all, this is absolutely wild," Tasha whispered into her phone. "This airline employee just ripped up this woman's first-class ticket and called it fake." Gate supervisor Jennifer Hayes approached with arms crossed, her badge catching the fluorescent light. She positioned herself beside Bethany, creating a wall of authority. "Ma'am, we're going to need to see 3 forms of identification, your credit card statement, and proof of purchase for that ticket," Jennifer announced. Her voice carried the practiced tone of someone accustomed to being obeyed. Keisha reached into her designer handbag, movements deliberate and controlled. She withdrew a platinum American Express Centurion card, its metallic surface gleaming under the terminal lights. The invitation-only card required a $10,000 annual fee. "Will this suffice as proof of my financial capability?" Keisha's voice remained steady, professional. Bethany barely glanced at the card. Anyone can get a fake credit card these days. The live stream viewer count jumped to 800. Comments flooded the screen faster than Tasha could read them. Gate C-14 began trending in Chicago within minutes. Marcus Johnson, a well-dressed investment banker in line behind Keisha, shifted uncomfortably. He recognized her from Forbes magazine covers but stayed silent, phone recording discreetly. "Do you understand English?" Bethany spoke slower and louder, emphasizing each word. "We need real identification, not props." 2 airport security officers arrived, their presence immediately shifting the dynamic. They positioned themselves between Keisha and the gate entrance without asking questions. "What seems to be the problem here?" Officer Rodriguez asked, his hand resting casually on his radio. "This passenger attempted to board with fraudulent documents," Jennifer explained. "We've confiscated the fake ticket for investigation." Keisha's phone buzzed insistently. The caller ID showed corporate office, urgent, but she declined the call. 47 missed calls accumulated in her notification bar. Meanwhile, other passengers moved through the boarding process without additional scrutiny. A white businessman in wrinkled khakis presented his boarding pass and was waved through immediately. A teenage girl with a coach ticket received a friendly smile. "This is exactly why we have security protocols," Bethany announced to the growing crowd. "Some people think they can just waltz onto airplanes without proper documentation." Officer Rodriguez studied the situation, noting the torn paper scattered on the floor. "Ma'am, do you have your original ticket receipt?" "The original ticket was destroyed," Keisha replied calmly, gesturing to the fragments. "By your airline employee." She destroyed a fake ticket, Bethany interjected. There's a big difference. Tasha's live stream exploded to 3,000 viewers. The comments section became a digital battlefield of outrage and support. Airline discrimination joined #GateC14 in trending topics. Please keep recording, Keisha said quietly to Tasha. The world needs to witness this. Jennifer Hayes pulled out her radio. We need additional security at Gate C14. Possible trespassing situation. Keisha opened her wallet, revealing multiple VIP cards and executive credentials. Her airline frequent flyer card showed platinum elite status with over 2 million miles. Ma'am, you're disrupting operations, Officer Rodriguez said. We can help you reschedule in economy class, or you'll need to leave the premises. Airport manager Derek Brooks arrived at a brisk pace, his tie slightly askew. He surveyed the scene. Security officers, torn paper, phones recording, and a composed black woman at the center of it all. What's the situation? Derek asked Jennifer. Attempted fraud. We caught her trying to use a fake first-class ticket. Derek nodded without investigating further. Ma'am, you have two options. Accept rebooking and available seating or leave the airport. Continuing to argue will result in trespassing charges. Flight 447. Departure, 31 minutes. The countdown pressure intensified. Other passengers craned their necks to watch the unfolding drama. Some filmed openly while others whispered among themselves. Keisha's phone rang again. This time, the caller ID read CEO Morrison, personal. She glanced at the screen and declined. This is what happens when people try to game the system, Bethany announced to the crowd, her voice carrying false authority. They think they can intimidate us with lawyers and complaints. 3 more security officers arrived as backup. The circle around Keisha tightened. 6 uniformed personnel, 3 airline employees, dozens of recording devices, and 200 watching passengers. An elderly black gentleman stepped forward from the crowd. Sister, I got your back, he said quietly. 2 other black passengers stood in solidarity, but the majority remained seated, creating a visible divide in the gate area. Tasha's viewer count hit 12,000. Comments poured in from across the country, sharing similar stories of travel discrimination. Final boarding begins in 20 minutes, the gate announcement declared. Derek Brooks began writing an incident report on his tablet. I'm documenting this for corporate and potential law enforcement action. Keisha remained eerily calm, her composure unshakable despite being surrounded. She took photos of each employee's name tag and badge number with methodical precision. Are you getting all of this? She asked for Tasha's camera. Every single second, Tasha confirmed. Keisha's voice dropped to almost a whisper, but her words carried across the silent gate area. I think it's time we cleared up this misunderstanding. Flight 447. Departure, 31 minutes. Keisha's words hung in the air like a challenge. The gate area fell silent except for the hum of air conditioning and distant terminal announcements. Even the live stream comments paused momentarily. Then chaos erupted. Derek Brooks's radio crackled to life. Code yellow at gate C14. Repeat. Code yellow. His face drained of color as he listened to the voice on the other end. He glanced at Keisha with newfound uncertainty. What's code yellow? Tasha whispered to her phone. Her viewer count had exploded to 18,000. The chat moved so fast, individual comments blurred together. Bethany sensed the shift in energy but pressed forward, her voice rising defensively. I don't care what kind of lawyer she thinks she has. Rules are rules. She pointed at the scattered ticket fragments, now attracting attention from janitors who carefully swept around them. That was a fraudulent document. I protected this airline from financial loss. Officer Rodriguez spoke into his shoulder radio, requesting guidance from airport command. His partner positioned herself to maintain visual contact with all exits. Jennifer Hayes pulled Derek aside, whispering urgently. Their conversation involved frequent glances at Keisha, who stood perfectly still in the center of the growing crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, Flight 447 will experience a brief delay due to an administrative matter, the gate announcement declared. Passengers groaned. Business travelers checked their watches and pulled out phones to reschedule connections. The man in wrinkled khakis who'd boarded easily earlier now complained loudly about the inconvenience. Marcus Johnson finally stepped forward, his investment banker instincts overriding his desire to avoid confrontation. "Excuse me," he said to Derek Brooks. "I think there might be a significant misunderstanding here." Derek barely looked at him. "Sir, please return to your seat. This doesn't concern you." "Actually, it does." Marcus pulled out his phone, showing a Forbes article from 6 months earlier. "That's Dr. Keisha Washington. She's the COO of Meridian Capital Group." Bethany scoffed. "Anyone can Photoshop a magazine cover these days." But Derek Brooks's expression changed. He studied the article, then looked at Keisha with a growing alarm. "Flight 447 departure, 28 minutes. Keisha's phone rang again. This time, instead of declining, she answered. "Yes, I'm aware of the situation," she said calmly. "No, don't intervene yet. Let this play out." She ended the call and looked directly at Tasha's camera. "These are the real-life stories that Black women face every day while traveling. This isn't unusual. It's systemic." The live stream comments exploded with similar experiences. Passengers shared stories of additional screening, seat changes, and suspicious treatment. Black travel stories began trending alongside #Gate C14. 3 more airport security officers arrived, bringing the total to 6. A supervisor in a white shirt joined them, speaking quietly into his radio while observing the scene. "We may need to clear the gate area," the security supervisor announced. "Clear the gate?" an elderly passenger protested. "We have a flight to catch." The crowd's mood shifted from curious to irritated. Business travelers began demanding compensation for delays. Families with children gathered their belongings, preparing for possible relocation. Derek Brooks approached Keisha again, his earlier confidence replaced by visible nervousness. "Ma'am, I've been informed that there may have been a misunderstanding. If you could provide additional identification, we might be able to resolve this quickly." "Additional identification?" Keisha's eyebrows raised slightly. "For what purpose?" "To verify your status." The word hung in the air like an accusation. Status. Not identity, not ticket validity, but status. Tasha's live stream viewer count hit 25,000. Major news outlets began picking up the story. CNN, NBC, and ABC all had social media teams monitoring the trending hashtags. Flight 447 departure, 25 minutes. Bethany Walsh, sensing the situation slipping from her control, made one final stand. "I don't care if she's the Queen of England," she announced loudly. "She presented a suspicious document, I followed protocol, and I'd do it again." The crowd's reaction was immediate and divided. Some passengers nodded in agreement, others shook their heads in disgust. The generational and racial lines became starkly visible. A young black flight attendant watched from the jet bridge, her face a mask of professional neutrality, despite the conflict raging in her eyes. Company policy required her silence, but her body language spoke volumes. "Ma'am, we need to resolve this now," Derek Brooks said to Keisha. "The flight is scheduled to depart in 25 minutes. "Then perhaps you should have thought about timing before destroying my valid boarding pass," Keisha replied. Her phone buzzed with a text message. She glanced at the screen and almost smiled. Almost. Officer Rodriguez received another radio call. This one was longer, involving multiple confirmations and spelled-out names. His partner watched his expression change from routine enforcement to something approaching concern. "Control, can you repeat that last part about Meridian Capital?" Rodriguez said into his radio. The words Meridian Capital rippled through the crowd like electricity. Several business passengers looked up from their phones with recognition. Jennifer Hayes overheard and immediately Googled the company name. Her face went pale as search results loaded. $12.7 billion in assets under management, she read aloud to Derek Brooks. Major shareholder in multiple airline companies, Derek continued reading over her shoulder. Bethany Walsh remained defiant. I don't care if she owns the moon. She had a fake ticket. But her voice carried less conviction now. The absolute certainty was cracking. Flight 447 departure, 22 minutes. Keisha's calm demeanor never wavered, but something subtle shifted. Her posture straightened imperceptibly. Her eyes focused with laser intensity. Mr. Brooks, she said, her voice carrying new authority. I'd like your full name and employee identification number for my report. Your report? The report I'll be filing with your corporate office, the Department of Transportation, and the Federal Aviation Administration regarding today's discrimination incident. Derek Brooks's hands shook slightly as he provided his information. The gravity of potential federal involvement was becoming clear. Tasha's phone was overheating from the continuous live stream, but she refused to stop recording. 28,000 viewers hung on every word. This is bigger than just a torn ticket, Keisha continued, addressing the camera directly. This represents systemic bias in the travel industry that affects millions of passengers who look like me. Her phone rang one final time. The caller ID simply read CEO. This time she answered immediately. Yes, I think it's time, she said into the phone. She ended the call and looked directly at Derek Brooks, then at Bethany Walsh, then at the 6 security officers surrounding her. Gentlemen, ladies, I believe there's been a catastrophic misunderstanding here. She reached into her handbag and withdrew a leather portfolio. From it, she extracted a single business card and handed it to Derek Brooks. His hands trembled as he read it aloud. Dr. Keisha Washington, Chief Operating Officer, Meridian Capital Group. But there was more text at the bottom of the card. Derek's voice caught as he read the final line. Board member, Transglobal Airlines. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the live stream comments stopped flowing. Bethany Walsh stared at the card, her earlier bravado evaporating like morning mist. Flight 447 departure, 18 minutes. Now then, Keisha said, her voice carrying quiet authority that could topple kingdoms. Shall we discuss what happens next? Flight 447. Departure, 18 minutes. The business card trembled in Derek Brooks's hands. He read it 3 times before the words registered fully. Board member, Transglobal Airlines, the very airline they all worked for. Bethany Walsh grabbed the card from him, studying it with the same intensity she'd used to examine Keisha's boarding pass. This could be fake, too, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Shall I call the number to verify? Keisha asked, her tone suggesting she already knew the answer. Derek Brooks's radio erupted with urgent chatter. The airport command was receiving calls from corporate headquarters, something about an emergency board meeting and immediate operational changes. Tasha's live stream had reached 35,000 viewers. The comments section moved so fast it appeared as a blur of outrage, shock, and disbelief. Gate C-14 was now trending nationally. This has got to be the plot twist of the century, Tasha whispered to her phone. Officer Rodriguez received another radio call. This one was different, longer, more urgent. He looked at Keisha with new eyes as he listened to instructions from the airport command. Control is asking us to stand down, he said to his partner. Stand down? Officer Martinez questioned. What does that mean? Before Rodriguez could answer, Keisha reached into her portfolio again. This time she withdrew a phone, not her personal device, but a sleek corporate smartphone with multiple security features. Authorization required for operational override, she said, speaking into the device. A voice responded immediately. Authorization granted, Dr. Washington. Meridian 779 confirmed. Derek Brooks watched in growing horror as Keisha's fingers moved across the phone screen with practiced efficiency. She was accessing systems that few people in the aviation industry even knew existed. "What are you doing?" Jennifer Hayes demanded. "Implementing emergency protocols," Keisha replied calmly. Every computer screen at Gate C-14 flickered simultaneously. The boarding pass scanners emitted warning beeps. Flight information displays went dark for 3 seconds, then displayed a message that made Derek Brooks's blood run cold. Flight 447, administrative hold, executive override. Bethany frantically pressed keys on her terminal. Nothing responded. The system had locked her out completely. "My computer's down," she announced, panic creeping into her voice. "Mine too," Jennifer confirmed. Gates C-12, C-13, C-15, and C-16 experienced similar technical difficulties. Passengers throughout the terminal began complaining about delays and system failures. Flight 407 departure. Indefinite hold. Keisha pocketed her corporate phone and addressed the live stream directly. "For those recordings, my name is Dr. Keisha Washington. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Meridian Capital Group, which owns a 34% controlling stake in Transglobal Airlines." The silence that followed was absolute. 35,000 live stream viewers, 200 gate passengers, airport staff across 3 terminals. Everyone is processing the same impossible reality. Marcus Johnson was the first to break the silence. "I tried to tell y'all," he said, shaking his head. "That's the woman who's been on the cover of Forbes 3 times this year." Bethany Walsh stared at her dead computer screen, then at the torn boarding pass fragments still scattered on the floor. The paper pieces suddenly looked like evidence at a crime scene. "But the ticket looked suspicious," she whispered. "No," Keisha corrected, holding up the fragments she'd collected. "I looked suspicious to you." "There's a significant difference." Derek Brooks's phone rang. The caller ID showed Corporate Emergency Line. His hands shook as he answered. "This is Derek Brooks at Gate C-14, he said. The voice on the other end was loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. "Mr. Brooks, this is Patricia Torres, station manager. I'm en route to your location. Do not take any further action regarding Dr. Washington without my direct approval." Derek's face went ashen. "Yes, ma'am." But Keisha wasn't finished. She withdrew another device from her portfolio, a tablet displaying real-time financial data. "Since we're discussing credentials," she said, turning the screen toward the crowd, "let me share some numbers with you." The tablet showed Meridian Capital's current holdings, $12.7 billion in assets under management. Transglobal Airlines represented their largest single investment at $2.3 billion. "Our corporate travel program generated $847 million in revenue for Transglobal last year," Keisha continued. "That's approximately 12% of the airline's total annual profits." Jennifer Hayes Googled frantically on her phone, cross-referencing the numbers. Every figure checked out. Tasha's viewer count hit 45,000. Major news networks were now monitoring the situation in real time. CNN had dispatched a crew to O'Hare Airport. Flight 447, departure, executive review. The crowd dynamics shifted dramatically. Passengers who had been sympathetic to airline staff now maintained careful distance. The 6 security officers stood awkwardly, unsure of their role in a situation that had evolved far beyond their training. Bethany Walsh made one desperate attempt to maintain control. "I was following company policy," she announced to anyone who would listen. "Suspicious documents require additional verification. I was protecting the airline from fraud." Keisha turned to face her directly. "Ms. Walsh, in your years of employment, how many first-class tickets have you torn up?" That's not relevant." "How many white passengers have you asked for 3 forms of identification?" Bethany's silence was answered enough. "How many boarding passes have you physically destroyed while claiming to protect the airline?" The live stream comments exploded with passengers sharing their own experiences. Stories of black travelers being subjected to additional screening, seat changes, and suspicious treatment flooded social media. Derek Brooks's radio crackled again. This time, the message was clear. All personnel at Gate C-14 are to remain in position pending executive review. Officer Rodriguez looked uncomfortable. Ma'am, we weren't aware of your position with the airline. That's precisely the point, Keisha replied. You made assumptions based on appearance rather than facts. She gestured to the torn ticket pieces still visible on the floor. This destroyed boarding pass represents more than discrimination against one passenger. It represents a corporate culture that needs immediate correction. Her corporate phone buzzed with an incoming call. The screen displayed CEO Morrison, urgent. This time, Keisha answered on speakerphone. David, she said, using the CEO's first name with familiar authority. Keisha, I just received an emergency briefing about the situation at O'Hare. Are you all right? I'm fine, David. But we have a significant problem that requires immediate attention. Whatever you need, legal is standing by, and I'm personally reviewing the incident reports. We'll discuss specifics on Monday's board call. For now, I need Ms. Torres at Gate C-14 with full authority to implement corrective measures. She's already en route. Keisha, I want you to know that this doesn't represent our company values. I understand that, David. Understand. But perception is reality, and right now, 45,000 people are watching this conversation live. The live stream viewer count was actually approaching 50,000, but Keisha's point was clear. Flight 447 departure. Corporate Response Station Manager Patricia Torres arrived at a near run, her professional composure barely concealing obvious panic. She surveyed the scene, disabled computers, scattered ticket fragments, recording devices, and Dr. Keisha Washington standing calmly in the center of it all. Dr. Washington, Patricia said, slightly out of breath, I offer my sincere apologies for this incident. Ms. Torres, I appreciate your response time. However, apologies to me aren't sufficient. These 48,000 viewers deserve to understand how this situation will be addressed. Patricia Torres looked directly at Tasha's camera. On behalf of Transglobal Airlines, I offer our deepest apology to Dr. Washington and our commitment to immediate systemic changes. But Keisha wasn't finished revealing the full scope of her authority. David, are you still on the line? Yes, Keisha. Please inform everyone present about the Meridian Transglobal Partnership Agreement, specifically Section 12B. There was a pause before the CEO responded. Section 12B allows Meridian Capital to terminate our partnership agreement immediately in cases of discrimination violations. This would result in the loss of approximately $2.3 billion in annual business. Bethany Walsh's knees buckled slightly. The magnitude of her actions was becoming clear. Derek Brooks stared at his incident report tablet, realizing he'd been documenting his own career termination. However, Keisha continued, I'm more interested in prevention than punishment, which brings us to the Washington Protocol. The Washington Protocol? Patricia Torres asked. A comprehensive anti-discrimination program we've been developing for the past 6 months. Real-time bias reporting, mandatory training, financial accountability measures, and technological solutions to prevent incidents like today. She looked directly at Bethany Walsh. Ms. Walsh, your actions today will serve as the case study for industry-wide changes. Every airline employee in America will learn about what happened at Gate C-14. The live stream comments were moving too fast to read, but the sentiment was clear. Justice was coming. Now then, Keisha said, gathering the torn ticket pieces from the floor, I believe my original request was quite simple. I'd like to board my flight. Patricia Torres practically sprinted to the gate counter, manually overriding every system necessary to process Keisha's boarding. Dr. Washington, Seat 1A is ready for immediate boarding. First-class service has been upgraded to our premium level. Keisha walked toward the jet bridge, then paused. Ms. Walsh, she said, turning back one final time. Bethany looked up hopefully. You were right about one thing. There was indeed a problem with my ticket. Bethany's face showed confusion. It should have been a complimentary upgrade to our executive suite. But don't worry, that mistake has been corrected. As Keisha disappeared down the jet bridge, the gate area erupted in a mixture of applause, nervous laughter, and the frantic clicking of keyboards as every employee tried to process what they'd just witnessed. Tasha ended her live stream with 52,000 viewers and a simple message: "Justice just walked onto that plane. Flight 447 departure, executive boarding." Keisha paused at the jet bridge entrance, her hand resting on the doorframe. The weight of 52,000 watching eyes pressed against her shoulders, but her voice remained steady. "Before I board this aircraft, I want to address something that affects every person of color who travels in America." She turned back to face the gate area, where Tasha continued recording despite her phone's overheating warnings. The live stream had become must-see television for news outlets across the nation. This isn't about me having enough money or influence to fight back. This is about the millions of black passengers who face discrimination without corporate leverage. Patricia Torres nodded respectfully, but her eyes darted nervously between Keisha and her buzzing phone. Corporate headquarters was clearly applying pressure for immediate resolution. "Dr. Washington," Patricia said carefully, "we're prepared to implement whatever changes you deem necessary." Keisha opened her corporate tablet, displaying a detailed presentation that appeared to have been prepared months in advance. The Washington Protocol consists of 5 mandatory components. Implementation begins immediately, not next quarter, not next month. Today. Component 1. Financial accountability. Effective immediately, Transglobal Airlines will pay $50,000 in automatic compensation for any verified discrimination incident. No negotiations, no legal proceedings, no appeals process. Derek Brooks's incident report tablet slipped from his hands, clattering on the floor. $50,000 per incident would bankrupt most operational budgets within weeks if discrimination wasn't eliminated immediately. Additionally, Keisha continued, all employee bonuses will be tied directly to diversity and inclusion metrics. Zero tolerance means zero bonus exceptions. Bethany Walsh realized her annual bonus had just evaporated along with her career prospects. Component 2. Real-time reporting technology. Keisha's tablet displayed a sleek mobile app interface. Every gate, every counter, every airline facility will feature QR codes linking to instant discrimination reporting. Passengers can file complaints directly with executive leadership in real time. The app showed features like photo evidence upload, witness contact information, and automatic legal documentation generation. Response time is mandatory within 15 minutes. Every report triggers immediate supervisor notification and requires written resolution within 24 hours. Patricia Torres was frantically taking notes, realizing the massive operational changes required. Component 3. Mandatory training protocol. Every Transglobal employee, from gate agents to executives, will complete monthly anti-bias training. Not annual, not quarterly, monthly. Jennifer Hayes shifted uncomfortably. Monthly training meant constant scrutiny of every interaction. Training includes real-world scenarios, implicit bias recognition, and cultural competency certification. Failure to complete training results in immediate suspension without pay. Keisha's presentation showed detailed curriculum modules covering microaggressions, systemic racism, and professional communication standards. Component 4. AI monitoring system. Artificial intelligence will monitor all gate interactions for bias indicators. Unusual verification requests, disproportionate screening, or discriminatory language will trigger automatic supervisor alerts. The technology seemed almost science fiction, but Keisha's matter-of-fact presentation suggested it was readily available. The system analyzes voice tone, conversation length, and treatment patterns across demographic groups. Statistical anomalies require immediate investigation. Officer Rodriguez whistled softly. Even airport security would be subject to algorithmic oversight. Component 5. Three-strike termination. Any employee documenting 3 bias incidents faces immediate termination with cause. No exceptions, no appeals, no second chances after the 3rd strike. Bethany Walsh realized she'd just accumulated her 1st, 2nd, and 3rd strikes simultaneously. Furthermore, Keisha continued, terminated employees will be placed on an industry-wide database preventing employment with any Meridian Capital partner airline. The scope of consequences was staggering. Meridian's partnerships extended across multiple airlines, effectively creating industry-wide accountability. The legal framework CEO David Morrison's voice crackled through the speakerphone, still connected from earlier. Keisha, our legal team has reviewed the protocol. Implementation can begin within 48 hours. 48 hours is unacceptable, David. Implementation begins now. Patricia Torres looked panicked. Dr. Washington, system-wide changes require coordination across multiple departments. Ms. Torres, we're not discussing preference. We're discussing contractual obligations under Section 12B of our partnership agreement. Keisha displayed the relevant contract language on her tablet. In the event of discrimination incidents involving protected classes, Meridian Capital reserves the right to implement immediate corrective measures with full operational authority. This clause was negotiated specifically for situations like today, Keisha explained to the live stream audience. Corporations respond to financial pressure more effectively than moral arguments. The ultimatum. Keisha's voice carried the quiet authority of someone accustomed to moving billions of dollars with simple decisions. Transglobal Airlines has exactly 5 minutes to publicly commit to full Washington Protocol implementation, or Meridian Capital begins divestiture proceedings Monday morning. The countdown was both literal and symbolic. Patricia Torres could practically hear the ticking clock. 5 minutes to choose between $2.3 billion in annual business or maintaining discriminatory practices. Derek Brooks's hands shook as he calculated the implications. Losing Meridian's business would result in massive layoffs, route cancellations, and potential bankruptcy proceedings. The public commitment. Patricia Torres stepped directly in front of Tasha's camera, her professional composure restored through sheer necessity. On behalf of Transglobal Airlines, I commit to immediate implementation of the Washington Protocol. Every component will be operational within 72 hours. But Keisha wasn't satisfied with vague promises. Ms. Torres, please be specific about the consequences for the employees involved in today's incident. Patricia Torres swallowed hard before responding. Ms. Bethany Walsh is terminated effective immediately. Her actions violated company policy and basic human decency. Bethany's supervisor badge was removed on camera, her access credentials deactivated in real time. Mr. Derek Brooks, your resignation has been accepted. You demonstrated poor judgment and failed to investigate before escalating. Derek quietly gathered his belongings, his 15-year airline career ending in live-streamed humiliation. Ms. Jennifer Hayes will serve 30 days unpaid suspension and complete mandatory bias training before reinstatement consideration. The broader impact. Keisha's corporate phone displayed incoming calls from airline executives across the industry. Word was spreading rapidly about the Washington Protocol and its potential adoption. Delta Airlines is requesting an emergency consultation, Patricia Torres reported after checking her messages. American Airlines wants to discuss preemptive implementation, David Morrison added from the speakerphone. United's CEO is en route to Chicago for immediate discussions, came another update. The livestream viewer count had reached 68,000. Hashtag Washington Protocol was trending globally alongside hashtag Gate C14 and hashtag Airline Reform, the personal reckoning. Keisha approached Bethany Walsh directly, speaking quietly enough that only nearby passengers could hear. Ms. Walsh, I want you to understand something important. Bethany looked up with desperate hope for mercy. Your assumptions about what I could afford weren't based on my clothes, my luggage, or my demeanor. They were based on my skin color. Bethany opened her mouth to protest, but Keisha continued. That unconscious bias cost your company millions of dollars and your colleagues their jobs. It damaged TransGlobal's reputation and traumatized passengers who witnessed your actions. Keisha held up the torn boarding pass fragments one final time. These paper pieces represent the cost of discrimination, not just to individuals but to entire organizations. She handed the fragments to Patricia Torres. Frame these in your corporate headquarters. Let them remind every employee that bias has consequences. The resolution. As Keisha finally walked toward the aircraft, her corporate phone buzzed with a text message she read aloud for the live stream. Stock price up 3.2% on news of discrimination protocol implementation. Investors approve of proactive bias prevention measures. She paused at the jet bridge one final time. To the 68,000 people watching this, remember, change happens when silence becomes more expensive than action. Patricia Torres personally escorted Keisha onto the aircraft, where the flight crew offered champagne and profuse apologies. Behind them, Gate C-14 buzzed with activity as corporate executives arrived to manage the aftermath of the most expensive discrimination incident in aviation history. Tasha ended her live stream with a simple message. This is how you change the world, one boarding pass at a time. The live stream final count, 71,000 viewers across 6 hours of continuous coverage. The story was just beginning. Flight 447, premium service activated. Inside the aircraft, Keisha settled into seat 1A as flight attendant Maria Rodriguez approached with genuine warmth, not the manufactured courtesy of damage control. Dr. Washington, it's truly an honor to serve you today. Your meal has been upgraded to our chef's special selection. Through the window, Keisha watched ground crews working frantically. 3 news vans had arrived at the terminal. CNN, NBC, and local Chicago stations were setting up cameras for live broadcasts. Her corporate phone displayed messages from airline executives worldwide. The Washington Protocol had become the aviation industry's most urgent topic within hours. Immediate systemic changes. Patricia Torres coordinated with corporate headquarters via emergency video conference. The implementation timeline was aggressive, but non-negotiable. QR codes will be installed at every gate by midnight, she reported to the arriving executives. The bias reporting app goes live at 6 a.m. tomorrow. IT departments across TransGlobal's network scrambled to deploy new systems. The AI monitoring technology, previously in development, received unlimited funding for immediate activation. Employee training modules are being rushed through final approval, the corporate communications director announced. First mandatory sessions begin Monday morning. The ripple effect accelerates. Delta Airlines issued a press release within 2 hours. Preemptive adoption of enhanced discrimination prevention measures. They'd contacted Meridian Capital requesting immediate consultation. American Airlines followed 30 minutes later with similar announcements. United's CEO personally called David Morrison seeking partnership discussions. The entire aviation industry was racing to avoid becoming the next viral discrimination story. Southwest Airlines stock dropped 1.8% on investor concerns about their lack of comparable protocols. JetBlue announced an emergency board meeting to discuss proactive bias prevention strategies. Personal accountability measures. Bethany Walsh cleared out her desk while security officers supervised. 15 years of airline experience ended with a cardboard box and an industry blacklist that would prevent future aviation employment. Her final paycheck included termination for cause, eliminating severance benefits. The incident report would follow her to any background check for years. Derek Brooks submitted his resignation letter via email, unable to face colleagues after the live-streamed humiliation. His management career in aviation was effectively over. Jennifer Hayes began her 30-day unpaid suspension with mandatory counseling sessions. Her return to work would depend on completing intensive bias training and psychological evaluation. Financial consequences. TransGlobal's stock price climbed 4.7% by market close. Investors appreciated proactive discrimination prevention as both ethical and financially prudent. Discrimination lawsuits cost airlines an average of $2.3 million annually. Financial analyst Rebecca Martinez explained on CNBC, "The Washington Protocol represents insurance against massive legal exposure." Meridian Capital's other investments also benefited from the positive publicity. The firm's reputation for social responsibility attracted new clients within hours. Technology implementation. The bias reporting app completed beta testing in record time. Early screenshots showed intuitive design, photo upload, witness information, automatic timestamping, and direct executive notification. Response time averaging 12 minutes during initial testing, the development team reported. Executive escalation protocols are functioning perfectly. AI monitoring systems began installation at major hubs. The technology could analyze conversation patterns, voice stress indicators, and treatment disparities across demographic groups. Statistical analysis will identify bias trends before they become viral incidents, explained Dr. James Brooks, the system's architect. Industry transformation. The Federal Aviation Administration announced new discrimination reporting requirements for all commercial airlines. The Washington Protocol became the unofficial industry standard overnight. Dr. Washington's experience highlights systemic issues we can no longer ignore, FAA Administrator Sandra Lopez stated during an emergency press conference. The Department of Transportation opened investigations into discrimination complaints at 12 major airlines. Previous incidents, once dismissed or settled quietly, received renewed scrutiny. Educational impact. Harvard Business School requested permission to develop a case study around the Gate C-14 incident. Columbia University's journalism program assigned students to analyze the social media response. This represents a masterclass in corporate accountability, Professor Michael Rodriguez explained. Individual actions creating systemic change through strategic pressure. The incident became required reading for airline management training programs nationwide. The memorial framework, Patricia Torres personally oversaw the framing of Keisha's torn boarding pass. The display would occupy a prominent position in TransGlobal's corporate lobby. The accompanying plaque read, "Discrimination tears us apart. Inclusion makes us whole. The Washington Protocol, 2025. Employee orientation now included mandatory viewing of the Gate C-14 live stream footage. New hires learned exactly how bias could destroy careers and companies. Global recognition. International aviation authorities began adopting similar protocols. European Union regulators requested consultation on implementing bias prevention measures. The International Air Transport Association invited Keisha to keynote their annual conference on systemic change in aviation customer service. Personal victory. As Flight 447 reached cruising altitude, Keisha opened her laptop to review partnership proposals from airlines worldwide. The discrimination incident had transformed into unprecedented business opportunities. Her assistant's email contained meeting requests from CEOs across the aviation industry. The Washington Protocol was becoming Meridian Capital's most valuable intellectual property. She raised her champagne glass in a private toast to the power of strategic patience and systematic change. 6 hours later, Flight 447 landed in Atlanta to news crews and passenger interviews. The story had evolved from individual discrimination to industry-wide transformation. Keisha's final statement to reporters was characteristically measured. Today proves that silence in the face of bias becomes complicity. Change requires courage, strategy, and sustained pressure. The touching stories emerging from Gate C-14 would inspire countless other Black voices to speak up, knowing that sometimes one person's quiet power can transform entire industries. 3 months later, Gate C-14 at O'Hare International Airport looked remarkably different. A permanent diversity and inclusion display occupied the wall where passengers once witnessed discrimination. The QR code for bias reporting gleamed prominently beside every gate agent station. Bethany Walsh now worked retail at a suburban mall. Her airline career permanently ended. Industry background checks flagged her termination for discrimination, closing doors across aviation. The viral video followed her to every job interview. Derek Brooks relocated to Portland, taking a customer service position at a tech startup. His LinkedIn profile carefully omitted his final months at Transglobal Airlines, but the internet never forgets. Jennifer Hayes returned to work after completing intensive bias training and psychological evaluation. Her colleagues treated her with careful professionalism, but the atmosphere never fully recovered. The Washington Protocol success discrimination incidents across participating airlines dropped 89% within 90 days. The combination of financial consequences, AI monitoring, and real-time reporting created unprecedented accountability. We've processed over 12,000 bias reports through the app, Patricia Torres announced during a corporate presentation. Average response time, 8 minutes. Resolution rate, 94%. The framed boarding pass fragments in Transglobal's lobby became a pilgrimage site for employees and visitors. The memorial reminded everyone that individual actions create lasting consequences. Industry transformation. 12 major airlines adopted modified versions of the Washington Protocol. The Federal Aviation Administration made bias training mandatory for all customer-facing personnel. Dr. Keisha Washington established a $5 million scholarship fund supporting Black students pursuing aviation careers. Applications poured in from aspiring pilots, air traffic controllers, and aerospace engineers. Her keynote addresses at industry conferences drew standing ovations and immediate policy changes. The quiet power she demonstrated at Gate C14 resonated across corporate boardrooms worldwide. Social legacy Nanstart Gates 14 evolved into a movement supporting travelers facing discrimination. Passengers shared real-life stories of bias, creating solidarity across racial and ethnic lines. The hashtag #HadWashingtonProtocol became synonymous with corporate accountability and systemic change. Business schools taught courses analyzing how individual courage could transform entire industries. Personal growth. Meridian Capital's reputation for social responsibility attracted $2.8 billion in new investments. Clients specifically requested portfolio companies with strong diversity and inclusion records. Keisha's LinkedIn followers grew from 50,000 to 2.3 million. Her posts about bias prevention and corporate accountability regularly reached millions of professionals worldwide. Final wisdom. 6 months after Gate C14, Keisha reflected on the incident during a Harvard Business School guest lecture. Power isn't about wealth or corporate titles. It's about using your influence to create lasting change that protects people who might not have your resources. She held up a replica of her torn boarding pass. Sometimes the most powerful response to ignorance isn't anger or confrontation. It's strategic action that ensures systematic change. Call to action. These Black stories matter because they illuminate systemic problems requiring collective solutions. Life stories like Keisha's prove that individual courage can create industry-wide transformation. Have you witnessed discrimination while traveling? Share your touching stories in the comments below. Your voice matters, and together we can continue pushing for equality and justice. Subscribe to Black Voices Uncut for more real-life stories of quiet power overcoming systemic bias. Hit the notification bell because these narratives need amplification. Remember, you never know who you're really talking to. Treat everyone with dignity and respect, because the person you underestimate today might be the one who changes everything tomorrow. Share this video if you believe in the power of strategic action over silent acceptance. Change happens when ordinary people refuse to accept extraordinary injustice.
The story you heard today wasn't cleaned up. It was told exactly as it happened. At Black Voices Uncut, we believe that's the only way truth can live. If you felt something, hit like, comment, and your reaction, and subscribe. Every week, we bring you voices that refuse to be silenced.